The cold darkness of space stretched endlessly in all directions. Among the distant stars, a single human cargo ship moved slowly through the outer rim territories. The vessel looked ordinary enough, just another merchant ship carrying supplies to the frontier colonies. Its name, Terra's Pride, was painted in faded letters on the side of the hull. Captain Vexthara stood on the bridge of his warcruiser, studying the human ship through the viewing screen. His yellow eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he watched. His prey, the Zephyrian captain, had been hunting this particular vessel for 3 full days, tracking it across empty space. His species looked like tall, thin lizards with green scales and sharp claws. They were known throughout the galaxy as fierce raiders who took what they wanted from weaker species. The human ship appeared perfect for his plans. It was traveling alone, far from any military patrols or space stations. The cargo manifest his. Spies had stolen showed it was carrying food, medicine, and farming equipment to human colonies on the edge of known space. These supplies would fetch a good price on the black market. Better yet, the humans themselves could be sold as slaves to species that valued their strong bodies and clever minds. Vexthara turned to his second officer, a smaller Zephyrian with darker scales. "How many humans are aboard that ship?" he asked. "Our scans show 30 life forms, Captain," the officer replied. "All human. No other species detected." The captain's mouth stretched into what passed for a smile among his people. 30 humans was a decent catch. His ship alone carried 200 Zephyrian warriors, more than enough to overwhelm such a small crew. But he had not come alone. Through the communication system, he contacted the other ships in his fleet. 5 more Zephyrian cruisers hung in space around him, all hidden behind asteroids and space debris. Each ship carried its own crew of raiders, eager for the coming battle. Together, they had more than 1,000 warriors ready to board the human vessel. "All ships, this is Captain Vexthara," he spoke into his communicator. "Prepare for attack. We take the ship in 10 minutes. Responses came back from each of his captains. They were ready. The humans would never know what hit them. On board Terra's Pride, Commander Jake Morrison stood quietly on his bridge. He was a tall man with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. His uniform was simple and practical, like everything else about the ship. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, checking systems and running diagnostics. To any outside observer, they looked like ordinary merchant sailors going about their daily duties. But Morrison knew better. Every person on this bridge was a trained military officer. Every system on this ship had been carefully modified and upgraded. What looked like a simple cargo vessel was actually one of the most advanced warships in the human fleet. Lisa Carter approached him with a datapad in her hands. She was a young woman with red hair and green eyes, serving as his second-in-command. "Sir, we're detecting 6 Zephyrian vessels moving into position around us," she reported quietly. Morrison nodded without showing any emotion. "Right on schedule. Are our people ready?" "All stations report ready, sir. Chief Ross has the engines running at full capacity. The weapon systems are charged and waiting. Kelly has her fighters prepped in the cargo bays." Morrison looked around. His bridge. Each crew member continued working as if nothing was happening. They had trained for this moment for months. The plan was simple but dangerous. They would let the aliens get close, let them think they had easy prey, and then show them just how wrong they could be. The Terra's Pride had been designed specifically for this kind of mission. From the outside, it looked like any other cargo ship. The hull was painted to look old and worn. The engines appeared to be standard civilian models. Even the weapons looked like basic defensive systems that any merchant vessel might carry. But underneath the disguise was something completely different. The ship's armor was 3 times thicker than it appeared. The engines could push the vessel at speeds that would surprise any military captain. The weapons were state-of-the-art military hardware, hidden behind panels that could drop away in seconds. Most importantly, the cargo bays did not contain farming equipment and medical supplies. Instead, they held a squadron of the most advanced fighter ships in human space, along with their pilots. These men and women were some of the best in the human military, volunteers who had agreed to this dangerous mission. Morrison watched his tactical display as the alien ships moved closer. The Zephyrians were being careful, trying to surround his vessel before attacking. It was a smart strategy that had probably worked well against other species. But they had made one critical mistake. They thought they were hunting helpless merchants. Peter. Ross, his chief engineer, looked up from his station. He was an older man with gray hair and steady hands. "Sir, all systems are running perfectly. The aliens won't detect anything unusual until we want them to." "Good work, Peter," Morrison replied. "Kelly, how are your pilots?" Kelly Barnes, his weapons specialist, turned from her console. She was a tough woman with black hair and sharp eyes. "They're ready to fly, sir." Amy and her squadron had been waiting for this chance for weeks. Morrison knew that Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez and her fighter pilots were among the best in human space. They had trained specifically to fight Zephyrian raiders, studying their tactics and weaknesses. Today would be the first real test of all. That preparation. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Everyone knew their job. Everyone was ready. They just had to wait for the aliens to make their move. On the main screen, Morrison could see the Zephyrian ships getting closer. They were big, ugly vessels with lots of weapons mounted on their hulls. They looked dangerous, and they were. The Zephyrians had been raiding human colonies for months, killing innocent people and stealing everything they could carry. Today, that would end. Morrison's communication officer, Tony Mitchell, looked up from his station. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead Zephyrian vessel." "Put it through," Morrison ordered. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at Captain Vexthara. The alien captain looked pleased with himself, his yellow eyes bright with anticipation. "Human vessel," the Zephyrian said in accented English, "you are surrounded. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and we will destroy your ship and everyone on it." Morrison stepped forward, his face showing nothing but calm concern. "This is Commander Morrison of the cargo vessel Terra's Pride. We are peaceful traders carrying supplies to the colonies. We have no weapons and no military training. Please, we surrender." Vexthara laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. "Smart choice, human. Prepare for boarding. Any resistance will be met with death." The transmission ended, and Morrison turned to his crew. Every face was focused and ready. The trap was set. Captain Vexthara felt victory within his grasp. The human commander had surrendered without a fight, just as he had expected. These soft creatures always gave up quickly when faced with superior force. He turned to his weapons officer, a scarred Zephyrian veteran named Crix. "Prepare boarding parties," Vexthara ordered. "Take 50 warriors from each ship. We board in 5 minutes." Crix nodded and began barking orders through the ship's communication system. Throughout the Zephyrian fleet, warriors grabbed their weapons and prepared for battle. They expected little resistance from the human crew, but they were ready for anything. The 6 alien ships moved closer to Terra's Pride, their engines glowing bright blue in the darkness of space. Each vessel bristled with weapons, their gun ports open and ready to fire. The humans had no choice but to submit to boarding or face complete destruction. On the bridge of Terra's Pride, Commander Morrison watched the alien ships approach. His crew remained calm at their stations, but he could feel the tension in the air. Everything depended on perfect timing. Too early, and they would lose the element of surprise. Too late, and the boarding parties would be inside their ship. Lieutenant Carter stood beside him, her hand resting on a red button that would activate their hidden systems. "Sir, the aliens are moving into final position. Boarding range in 2 minutes." Morrison nodded slowly. Around him, his crew prepared for the moment they had trained for. Each person knew exactly what to do when the time came. Chief Engineer Ross had his finger on the engine controls. Weapons Specialist Barnes was ready to deploy their fighters. Communications Officer Mitchell was prepared to jam all alien frequencies. Through the view screen, Morrison could see the ugly shapes of the Zephyrian cruisers getting larger. Their hulls were dark green and covered with armor plating. Weapon turrets tracked his ship like hungry eyes. Soon, those same ships would be fighting for their lives. "All stations, stand by," Morrison said quietly into his communicator. Throughout the ship, his crew heard the command and tensed for action. Captain Vexthara stood on his bridge, watching the human ship through his targeting scope. The vessel looked even more helpless up close. Its hull was old and scratched, probably from years of hauling cargo through dangerous space. The weapons it carried were small and outdated, barely enough to fight off pirates. "Human vessel," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Lower your shields and prepare for boarding. Any resistance will result in the death of your entire crew." The response came back immediately from Commander Morrison. "We understand. Our shields are down. We are ready to surrender." Vexthara smiled with satisfaction. This was almost too easy. His boarding parties would be inside the human ship in minutes. The cargo would be his, and the humans would be loaded into slave cages for transport to the markets. "All ships move to boarding positions," he commanded his fleet. "Deploy docking clamps and prepare to breach their hull." The Zephyrian ships moved in perfect formation, surrounding Terra's Pride like hungry predators. Their docking arms extended, ready to lock onto the human vessel and force their way inside. It was a technique they had used hundreds of times against other species. But as the first ship moved within 50 meters of Terra's Pride, everything changed. Morrison looked at his crew one final time. "Now," he said simply. Lieutenant Carter pressed the red button. Instantly, the outer hull of Terra's Pride began to transform. Sections that had looked like simple cargo containers suddenly split open, revealing sleek fighter craft inside. The dull gray paint on the hull flaked away, showing the bright silver armor underneath. Weapon ports opened all along the ship's sides, and massive gun barrels emerged from hidden compartments. The ship's engines, which had been running at minimal power, suddenly flared to life with brilliant white light. The Terra's Pride lurched forward with speed that should have been impossible for a cargo vessel. In seconds, it had moved out of the center of the Zephyrian formation and taken a defensive position. Captain Vexthara stared in shock at the transformation. The helpless cargo ship had become a fully armed warship right before his eyes. The humans had tricked him completely. "How is this possible?" he shouted at his crew. "Our intelligence said it was a merchant vessel." His sensor officer, a young Zephyrian named Vex, looked up from his instruments with fear in his eyes. "Captain, I'm reading military-grade armor, advanced shields, and weapon systems I've never seen before. This is no cargo ship." Before Vexthara could respond, the first wave of human fighters launched from Terra's Pride. 20 sleek spacecraft emerged from the hidden bays, their engines blazing as they accelerated toward the Zephyrian fleet. These were not the bulky interceptors that most species used, but slim, fast ships designed for precision strikes. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez led the fighter squadron, her hands steady on the controls of her craft. She had been waiting for this moment for months, studying Zephyrian tactics and preparing for battle. Behind her, 19 other pilots followed in perfect formation. "This is Red Leader," she broadcast to her squadron. Target their engines first. We want them disabled, not destroyed. The commander wants prisoners to send a message. The fighters split into groups, each team targeting a different Zephyrian cruiser. Their weapons were unlike anything the aliens had seen before, firing concentrated beams of energy that could cut through armor like paper. On Terra's Pride, Chief Engineer Ross worked frantically at his controls. The ship's true power was finally unleashed, and every system was running at maximum efficiency. The engines that had seemed so ordinary now pushed the vessel at speeds that amazed even him. All systems operating at full capacity, he reported to Morrison. The aliens never saw this coming. Morrison watched his tactical display as the battle began. The Zephyrians were trying to regroup, but their formation was broken. They had expected to be boarding a helpless cargo ship, not fighting a military vessel and a squadron of advanced fighters. Weapons specialist Barnes worked at her station, coordinating the fighter attack with the ship's main guns. "Sir, the aliens are trying to retreat. Should we let them go?" "Not yet," Morrison replied. "We need to make sure they understand the message. Target their weapon systems. I want them helpless but alive." The Terra's Pride's main guns opened. Fire for the first time. The weapons that had been hidden behind false panels unleashed devastating blasts of energy. The first shots struck the lead Zephyrian cruiser, overwhelming its shields and destroying its weapon turrets. Captain Vex Thara felt his ship shudder under the impact. His weapons officer reported that their main guns were offline and their engines were damaged. Around him, the other ships in his fleet were suffering the same fate. "Retreat," he shouted into his communicator. "All ships, retreat immediately." But Communications Officer Mitchell had already jammed their frequencies. The Zephyrian ships could not coordinate their escape. One by one, they were being picked apart by the human fighters and the Terra's Pride's precise fire. Morrison watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The trap had worked perfectly. The aliens who had spent months terrorizing human colonies were now the ones facing destruction. Soon, they would learn what it truly meant to target a human vessel. The battle erupted with terrifying speed. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez dove her fighter toward the nearest Zephyrian cruiser, her weapons locked onto the alien ship's engine core. The human fighters moved like deadly birds, darting between the larger vessels with grace and precision that left the aliens stunned. "Red 2, take the port engine," Rodriguez called to her wingman, pilot Rick Johnson. "Red 3, hit their communications array." The fighters split up, each one targeting a specific weakness in the Zephyrian ships. These pilots had studied alien vessel designs for months, memorizing every vulnerable point. Now their knowledge paid off as their precise shots disabled key systems with surgical accuracy. Rick Johnson's fighter screamed past the second Zephyrian cruiser, his energy cannons blazing. The concentrated fire punched through the alien ship's armor and destroyed its main engine. The cruiser began to drift helplessly, its power failing as explosions rippled through its hull. "Direct hit on target 2, Johnson reported. "Their engine is gone." On Terra's Pride, Commander Morrison watched the tactical display with satisfaction. His fighters were performing exactly as planned, while his main ship engaged the larger targets. The Zephyrians were trying to fight back, but their shots were wild and desperate. "Kelly, bring us around for another pass," Morrison ordered. "Target the lead cruiser's weapons." Weapons specialist Barnes worked her controls with deadly precision. The Terra's Pride's main guns swiveled toward Captain Vex Thara's flagship, their energy building to devastating levels. When they fired, the blast was so bright it lit up the surrounding space like a small sun. The shot struck the Zephyrian flagship dead center, overloading its shields and tearing through its armor. Weapon turrets exploded in chains of fire, and the ship's hull buckled under the impact. On the bridge, Vex Thara was thrown from his feet, as his ship shuddered like a wounded animal. "Damage report?" the alien captain shouted, pulling himself upright. His weapons officer, Crix, looked up from his smoking console. "All main guns are offline. Hull breaches on 3 levels. We've lost half our shields." Vexthara stared at the human ship in disbelief. How could one vessel cause so much destruction? The Terra's Pride moved through space like a predator, its weapons firing with deadly accuracy. Every shot found its mark. Every maneuver put the aliens at a disadvantage. "Captain," his sensor officer called out, "the human fighters are attacking our other ships. We're losing them fast." Through the view screen, Vexthara could see his fleet being torn apart. The human fighters were everywhere, their small size making them almost impossible to hit. They struck like lightning, destroying engines and weapons. Before darting away to attack another target, the 3rd Zephyrian cruiser tried to run, its captain ordering full power to the engines. But pilot Sarah Kim was already there, her fighter diving toward the fleeing ship. Her shots were perfectly placed, striking the engine core at its most vulnerable point. The alien cruiser's engines exploded in a brilliant flash. The ship tumbled. Out of control, its hull cracking from the internal explosions. Within seconds, it was nothing but floating debris. "Target 3 is destroyed," Kim reported calmly, moving to assist Red Leader. On Terra's Pride, Chief Engineer Ross monitored the ship's systems with growing amazement. Every component was working perfectly, even under the stress of combat. The modifications they had made were proving their worth. "Sir, all systems are running at optimal levels," he reported to Morrison. "The aliens can't even scratch our armor." Morrison nodded, his attention focused on the battle. The Zephyrians were brave fighters, but they were completely outmatched. Their ships were older designs, built for raiding weak merchant vessels. They had never faced military hardware like this. "Tony, any word from the other alien ships?" Morrison asked his communications officer. Tony Mitchell shook his head. "They're still jammed, sir. The aliens can't coordinate their attacks or call for help." The 4th Zephyrian cruiser made a desperate attempt to ram Terra's Pride. Its captain, realizing his weapons were useless, ordered his ship to full speed on a collision course. It was a suicide attack, but it might take the human vessel with it. Morrison saw the attack coming and smiled grimly. "Lisa, evasive maneuvers. Show them what this ship can really do." Lieutenant Carter's hands flew over her controls, and Terra's Pride responded like a living thing. The massive vessel rolled to one side, its enhanced engines pushing it into a turn that should have been impossible for a ship its size. The Zephyrian cruiser shot past harmlessly, its captain staring in shock at the empty space where his target had been. "Now," Morrison said quietly. The Terra's Pride's rear weapons fired, catching the alien cruiser from behind. The shots tore through its engines and into its reactor core. The ship vanished in a ball of fire that lit up the darkness for miles. "In every direction. That's 4 down," Barnes reported. 2 left. The 5th Zephyrian ship was already badly damaged, its hull split open and atmosphere venting into space. Its captain tried to surrender, broadcasting on all frequencies, but the human fighters continued their attack. They had orders to disable all alien vessels, not destroy them. But this ship was too damaged to save. The final cruiser, seeing the destruction of its fleet, made a desperate run for freedom. Its engines burned bright as it tried to escape the battle zone. But the human fighters were faster, and they cut off its escape route with ease. Amy Rodriguez positioned her fighter directly in front of the fleeing ship. "This is the human military." She broadcast on the alien frequency. "Stop your engines and surrender, or we will destroy you." The Zephyrian captain, faced with certain death, powered down his engines. His ship drifted to a stop, its weapons silent and its shields down. Around him, the wreckage of his fleet floated in space like broken toys, Morrison looked at his tactical display with satisfaction. In less than 20 minutes, they had destroyed or disabled an entire Zephyrian fleet. The aliens who had terrorized human colonies for months were now helpless before human military might. "Sir," Carter reported, "we have one enemy vessel surrendering. The others are either destroyed or disabled." Morrison nodded. "Good. Now comes the important part. We need to make sure the message gets out." The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. The surviving Zephyrians would carry word of this defeat back to their people. They would tell the story of how a single human vessel had destroyed an entire fleet. And maybe, just maybe, other alien raiders would think twice before attacking human ships again. Vixthara sat on his damaged bridge, staring at the human vessel that had destroyed his fleet. He had underestimated these creatures badly. They were not the weak merchants he had expected, but skilled warriors with advanced technology. His people would need to know about this defeat, and they would need to choose their targets more carefully in the future. The age of easy prey was over. The humans had shown their true strength, and the galaxy would never be the same. The silence after the battle was deafening. Floating debris from destroyed Zephyrian ships drifted slowly through space, their twisted metal hulls catching the light from distant stars. Only one alien vessel remained intact, its engines dark and its weapons silent. Captain Vexthara's flagship hung helplessly in space, surrounded by the wreckage of his once mighty fleet. Commander Morrison stood on the bridge of Terra's Pride, watching the tactical display with calm satisfaction. His crew had performed flawlessly, and the mission was almost complete. But the most important part was still to come. They needed to send a message that would echo throughout the galaxy. "Lisa, bring us alongside the surviving alien ship," Morrison ordered. "Tony, open a channel to their captain." Lieutenant Carter guided Terra's Pride closer to the damaged Zephyrian cruiser. The human vessel moved with quiet grace, its weapons still trained on the alien ship. The message was clear without words. Any resistance would result in immediate destruction. Communications Officer Mitchell worked at his station, establishing contact with the alien vessel. "Channel open, sir. The alien captain is responding." The main screen flickered to life, showing Captain Vexthara on his damaged bridge. The proud Zephyrian leader looked broken and defeated. His yellow eyes no longer held the confidence they had shown before the battle. Around him, his crew worked frantically to repair damaged systems and tend to wounded crew members. "Human commander," Vexthara said, his voice heavy with defeat. "I request terms for surrender." Morrison stepped forward, his expression cold and serious. "There will be no terms, alien. You attacked peaceful human vessels and colonies. You killed innocent people and took them as slaves. Today, that ends." The alien captain's scaled face showed confusion. "Then you will destroy us?" "No," Morrison replied. "You will live. But you will carry a message back to your people and to every other species that thinks humans are easy prey." Morrison turned to his security chief, Carl Rodriguez, who had been preparing for this moment. Rodriguez was a large man with steady hands and sharp eyes. He had served in many battles and understood the importance of what they were about to do. "Carl, begin the recording," Morrison ordered. Rodriguez activated the ship's recording systems, capturing everything that happened on multiple channels. The message would be sent across the galaxy, reaching every species that might consider attacking human vessels. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of the Human Defense Force," Morrison began, his voice carrying across space to the alien ship. "For months, your people have attacked our colonies and merchant vessels. You have killed our civilians and stolen our property. You believed humans were weak and defenseless." Morrison paused, letting his words sink in. On the alien ship, Vexthara and his crew listened in silence. They had no choice but to hear what the human commander had to say. Today, you learned the truth, Morrison continued. What you attacked was not a helpless cargo ship. It was a military vessel, designed specifically to hunt raiders like you. We used ourselves as bait, and you took it willingly. The camera panned across the bridge of Terra's Pride, showing the advanced technology and skilled crew. These were not frightened merchants, but trained warriors with the best equipment humanity could provide. Look around you, Morrison said. Your entire fleet has been destroyed or disabled by a single human vessel. Your weapons could not penetrate our armor. Your ships could not match our speed. Your tactics were useless against our strategy. Through the view screen, they could see the wreckage of the Zephyrian fleet. Twisted metal and debris floated in all directions, proof of the human victory. The sight was both terrible and beautiful, a demonstration of what happened when someone underestimated humanity. This is the message I want you to carry, Morrison. Saad, his voice growing stronger. Humanity is not weak. We are not defenseless. We are not easy prey. Every attack on our people will be met with overwhelming force. Every raid on our colonies will be answered with destruction. Morrison gestured to the tactical display, which showed the positions of other human ships throughout the galaxy. What you see here is not unique. Ships like Terra's Pride are positioned throughout known space, waiting for the next group of raiders to reveal themselves. We have been watching. We have been learning. And we have been preparing. The alien captain's eyes widened as he realized the implications. The humans had not just defended themselves. They had set a trap that could be repeated anywhere, anytime. Your intelligence networks told you we were peaceful merchants, Morrison continued. They were wrong. We allowed you to believe that because it served our purposes. Every species that has attacked us has been fed false information. Every raid you planned was known to us in advance. Lieutenant Rodriguez's fighter squadron flew past the main screen, their sleek ships moving in perfect formation. These pilots had trained for years to fight alien raiders, and today they had proven their worth. We do not seek war, Morrison said, but we will not tolerate attacks on our people. The choice is yours. Leave human space alone, and we will leave you alone. Continue your raids and face the consequences. Morrison turned to his weapons officer. Kelly, show them what those consequences will be. Weapons specialist Barnes activated the Terra's Pride's targeting systems. Dozens of weapon arrays appeared on the alien ship's sensors, each one capable of destroying a cruiser with a single shot. The demonstration lasted only seconds, but it was enough to show the overwhelming firepower hidden within the human vessel. This recording will be transmitted to every major species in the galaxy, Morrison announced. They will see what happened here today. They will learn that attacking human vessels is a mistake that few survive to regret. The recording ended, and Morrison turned back to the alien captain. Captain Vexthara, you will return to your people. With this message, tell them what you have seen here. Tell them that the age of easy human prey is over. The alien captain nodded slowly. His ship was badly damaged, but it could still make the journey home. His crew would have time to think about what they had witnessed during the long trip back to Zephyrian space. You may go, Morrison said. But remember, if any Zephyrian ship attacks humans again, there will be no survivors to carry the message. As the alien ship limped away into the darkness, Morrison felt a sense of satisfaction. The message had been sent. Soon, every species in the galaxy would know that humans were not the helpless victims they appeared to be. The Terra's Pride resumed its disguise as a simple cargo vessel, but the galaxy had changed forever. Other species would think twice before attacking human ships. The price of that mistake had been demonstrated for all to see. Morrison looked out at the stars and smiled. Humanity had stepped out of the shadows and shown its true strength. The age of peace through strength had begun.